The room went quiet. Not the normal kind. The kind where people stop chewing. Where glasses stay halfway to lips. I was still holding my fork. Someone laughed. Soft. Awkward. Then my mother leaned in. Close enough that only I could hear. You should be grateful we tried. Tried. That word stayed there. Hanging. Heavy. Across the table, my father didn't look at me. He just kept cutting his steak. Slow. Precise. Like nothing had happened. My fiancé reached for my hand. I didn't move. Because something didn't make sense. Not the words. Not the timing. Not the way they said it. And definitely not the way everyone else suddenly avoided my eyes. That's when I realized something was very wrong. I didn't say anything that night. Not at the table. Not in the car. Not even when we got home. I just told her I was tired. She didn't push. She never did. That was one of the reasons I trusted her. The next morning, I woke up early. Same routine. Coffee first. Emails after. I had been preparing for med school for years. Everything was planned. Applications done. Acceptance secured. Funding handled. Or at least, that's what I believed. I opened my laptop. Checked my account. The number didn't look right. At first, I thought it was a delay. Maybe a processing issue. It happens. So I refreshed. Then again. Still the same. Lower. Much lower. I leaned back. Tried to remember the last transfer. The last confirmation. Everything had been fine. Precise. Organized. I'm careful with money. I have to be. No loans. No shortcuts. That fund wasn't just savings. It was years of work. Late nights. Extra shifts. Saying no to things other people didn't even think twice about. I checked the transaction history. Scrolled slowly. There it was. A withdrawal. Large. Unfamiliar. I stared at it for a long time. Then I checked again. Same result. Same number. Same missing amount. $127,000. Gone. No notification. No warning. Just, gone. I didn't panic. That's not how I work. I closed the laptop. Finished my coffee. Then I called the bank. The woman on the phone was polite. Professional. She confirmed the transaction. Authorized. That word again. Authorized. I asked how. She explained. Access was granted through a secondary approval. A name I recognized. I didn't respond right away. Just thanked her. Hung up. Sat there for a minute. Then I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. Cheerful. Too cheerful. I asked her directly. About the withdrawal. There was a pause. Short. Then she laughed. Oh, that, she said. Like it was nothing. Like it was expected. She told me it was temporary. That they needed it. That it would be replaced. Don't overreact, she added. Overreact. I asked when. She said soon. No date. No detail. Just soon. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just said okay. Then I called my father. Same story. Same tone. Different words. It's family, he said. You'll understand later. Understand what? That my entire future had been treated like a backup plan? I didn't say that. I just listened. Later that day, my fiancé asked if everything was okay. I told her I was figuring something out. She offered help. I said I didn't need it. Not yet. Over the next few days, I watched. Small things started to stand out. My parents stopped asking about school. They changed the subject whenever it came up. My father avoided specifics. My mother kept repeating the same phrases. Temporary. Don't stress. Focus on your engagement. It didn't feel like reassurance. It felt like deflection. Then came the dinner. The one where they called me a failure. In front of everyone. Like the missing money was somehow my fault. Like I had mismanaged something. Like I hadn't planned. That's when the pattern became clear. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't temporary. And it definitely wasn't something they intended to fix quietly. So I stopped reacting. And I started watching. Once I stopped asking questions out loud, people got comfortable. That was the first useful thing I learned. When people think you've accepted something, they stop covering it. I kept my voice calm. I stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped trying to work it out. And almost immediately, things started surfacing on their own. The first real piece of proof came from the bank. Not from a conversation. Not from memory. From paper. I went in person 2 days after the engagement dinner and asked for a full access history on the education account. Not just transactions. Everything. Authorized users. Change requests. Login confirmations. Linked approvals. The banker printed it all and slid it across the desk like it was routine. Maybe for him, it was. For me, it was the moment things stopped being emotional and became factual. My mother had been added as a secondary access user 3 years earlier. I never did that. I knew I didn't. But there was a signed authorization form in the file. My signature was on it. At least, a version of it was. It looked close enough to pass a glance. Not close enough to survive one. The date on the form was during a week I had been out of state for a university placement program. I still had the travel confirmation emails. The hotel receipt. The event badge. I had not been in town. I had definitely not been at that branch. I asked the banker if there was camera footage tied to in-person authorization. He said footage retention was limited, and the original form was old. But the document itself had been scanned at a local branch on a Tuesday at 2:14 p.m. That mattered. Because at 2:14 p.m. that same Tuesday, I had been photographed at a student panel in another city. There were dozens of people there. That was the first time I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Not even shock. Just clarity. This had not been impulsive. It had been prepared. I took copies of everything and left without saying much. The second piece came from someone I didn't expect. My aunt. My mother's older sister. She called me that evening and asked, very carefully, if I was doing okay after dinner. I said I was fine. She went quiet. Then she asked me if I knew why my father had suddenly paid off his business debt last month. I didn't answer right away. She filled the silence herself. Apparently, my parents had been telling relatives 2 different stories. To some people, they said they had helped me manage my school money because I was too distracted with my engagement. To others, they said I had wasted it and they had stepped in to save me. That part almost impressed me. The efficiency of it. They weren't just taking the money. They were building a version of events where I'd look unstable before I even noticed what they'd done. My aunt said she hadn't believed them. Not fully. But she did overhear something after church 2 Sundays earlier. My mother had been talking to a family friend and said, he'll be upset now, but once he's married, med school won't even happen. He'll get over it. I wrote that sentence down exactly as she said it. Word for word. Then my aunt sent me something else. A photo. Not dramatic. Not blurry. Just simple and devastating. It was a receipt from a luxury venue deposit. The kind used for private events. The amount matched part of the missing funds. The event name printed on the top line was my cousin's wedding. My parents had helped pay for it. Generously, apparently. Using money they had called temporary. That same night, I checked public records for my father's business. There had been a lien issue months earlier. Then suddenly, it disappeared. Resolved. Quickly. Cleanly. Expensively. And then, finally, the thing that removed any last bit of doubt. A voicemail. Accidental, I think. My mother had meant to send it to someone else. Instead, she sent it to me. It was only 18 seconds long. Her voice was low. Casual. Annoyed. She said, he's acting like we stole from him. It was sitting there doing nothing. At least now it helped someone useful. I played it 3 times. Then I saved it in 3 places. phone, laptop, cloud drive. Because after that, this wasn't about family anymore. It wasn't about feelings. It was about theft, fraud, and intent. And the worst part wasn't even the money. It was hearing, in her own voice, that they had already decided my future didn't matter. That I was a failed investment before I had even started. That was the part one couldn't unknow. So I didn't confront them. I organized everything instead. Because by then, I understood something they didn't. Confronting them would have ruined everything. Once I had proof, everything changed. Not emotionally. Practically. I stopped thinking like a son and started thinking like someone building a case. That sounds colder than it felt. But honestly, it was the only way through it. Emotion would have made me sloppy. And sloppy was exactly what they were counting on. So I made a system. Every document was scanned and labeled by date. Every message was exported. Every voicemail was duplicated. I made one folder on my laptop, one on an encrypted drive, and one in a private cloud account they didn't know existed. Then I printed hard copies. Not because I'm old-fashioned. Because paper doesn't get deleted. I also wrote a clean timeline. No opinions. No adjectives. Just sequence. When access was added. When the withdrawal happened. When the lies started. When the engagement dinner happened. When my mother sent the voicemail. Once it was all laid out, it looked worse than it had felt. That was useful. The next thing I did was call the admissions office at the medical school. That was the call I had been avoiding. Not because I was embarrassed. Because I knew it would make everything real. The woman I spoke to was kind, but direct. My enrollment could be deferred once. Only once. If I couldn't secure the funding in time, I would lose the seat. Years of work. One phone call away from disappearing. I thanked her. Wrote down every detail. Then I called a lawyer. Not a family friend. Not someone recommended by relatives. A stranger. A financial fraud attorney in the next city over. He listened without interrupting. That alone made me trust him more than most people I knew. I sent him the documents that afternoon. By evening, he called back. His tone was calm. Measured. He said 3 things. First, this was likely both civil and criminal. Second, the forged authorization mattered more than the family relationship. And third, if I handled this correctly, I had a strong chance of recovering the money or freezing enough assets to force accountability. That was the first time in days I slept more than 4 hours. Not because I felt better. Because I finally had direction. Over the next week, we moved quietly. My lawyer sent a records preservation notice to the bank. He requested internal verification logs and signature comparisons. He also had me file a formal fraud affidavit. That part felt surreal. Checking boxes next to phrases like forged authorization and unauthorized withdrawal by known parties. My parents still had no idea. And that was the point. At home, I acted normal. At family gatherings, I stayed polite. At Sunday lunch, I even let my father complain about taxes for 20 straight minutes while I nodded like I was half listening. He mistook my silence for weakness. So did my mother. She started acting almost relaxed around me again. Even generous. She texted me links to wedding decor. Asked if we'd picked a honeymoon location. Sent me one of those fake sweet messages mothers send when they want to soften the ground. Proud of the man you're becoming. I stared at that one for a while. Then archived it. My fiancé was the only person who knew the full truth. I told her everything one night after dinner, sitting on the floor of our apartment with the documents spread across the coffee table. She didn't interrupt. Didn't rush to comfort me. Just listened. Then she said, very quietly, they were planning to bury you with your own reputation. That was exactly it. Not just financially. Socially. Emotionally. If I had reacted publicly too early, they would have painted me as unstable, ungrateful, dramatic. And people would have believed them. Because they were practiced. Respectable. Convincing. But evidence is boring in the best possible way. It doesn't care who smiles better at church. A week later, my lawyer got confirmation from the bank that the signature irregularity had triggered an internal review. That was the first crack on their side. Then came the next move. My parents were hosting a small family brunch the following Saturday. A clean-up event, really. A chance to smooth over what happened at the engagement dinner and quietly reinforce the story that I had somehow disappointed them. They invited relatives, family friends, even my godfather. I almost didn't go. Then my lawyer said something simple. Go, he told me, and arrive on time. So I did. I wore the blue suit my mother always said made me look respectable. I parked across the street, checked my phone once, then saw the second car pull in behind mine. Black sedan. County investigator in the passenger seat. My lawyer in the back. And for the first time since this started, I felt completely still. Inside the house, they were probably arranging fruit trays and rehearsing concern. Outside, the paperwork was already done. The bank report had been flagged. The affidavit had been filed. The recovery order was ready. They thought it was just another day. It wasn't. My mother opened the door smiling. That was the first strange part. The second was how quickly the smile changed when she saw who was standing behind me. Not panic. Not immediately. Just confusion. The kind people where when reality hasn't fully reached them yet. She looked past my shoulder. Saw the investigator. Saw my lawyer. Then she stepped back without saying a word. Inside, the dining table was already set. Fruit trays. Coffee. Pastries arranged too neatly to be casual. My father was near the kitchen island, halfway through a conversation with my uncle. My cousin was pouring orange juice. My aunt froze the second she saw my face. No one shouted. No one had to. The room understood before anyone explained. My lawyer introduced himself first. Calm voice. Professional tone. Then he handed my parents the papers. Civil notice. Asset freeze request. Formal demand for recovery. The investigator followed with his own explanation, even calmer somehow. There had been a fraud complaint. A forged banking authorization. An active financial review. My father actually laughed. A short one. Disbelieving. Then he looked at me. Not hurt. Not ashamed. Annoyed. Like I had embarrassed him. This is unnecessary, he said. That was the first thing he chose. Not I'm sorry. Not let's talk. Just unnecessary. My mother tried a different route. She started crying almost on cue. Said this was a misunderstanding. Said they had always intended to return it. Said I was being influenced. By my fiancé. By outsiders. By stress. The investigator asked a very simple question. If the funds were temporary, where are they now? That was when the room shifted. Because no one had an answer that could survive paperwork. My father said part of it had gone to family obligations. My mother said they had moved things around. My lawyer asked if those obligations included the business debt payoff and the wedding venue deposit linked to my cousin's event. No one looked at me after that. They looked at the floor. At the table. At each other. My cousin turned pale so fast I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then came the document that ended the performance. The bank's preliminary signature review. Inconclusive for criminal charging at that exact moment, but strong enough to support civil fraud and account misuse. Enough to trigger the freeze. Enough to start the clock. My father finally lost composure then. Not loudly, but visibly. His jaw tightened. His voice got sharper. He asked if I was really doing this to family. And I remember answering him very clearly. Yes. That was all. Because there was nothing else to explain. They had already explained themselves through receipts, lies, and timing. The rest happened quickly. Faster than I expected. Their business accounts were reviewed. A portion of funds was traceable. The venue deposit was reversed after legal pressure. A payment arrangement was signed within 12 days. Assets were leveraged. Property was refinanced. And eventually, most of the money came back. Not all at once. But enough. Enough for the school. Enough to keep my seat. Enough to stop them from rewriting what they had done. The social fallout was almost quieter than the legal part. That was the strange thing. No dramatic family split. No screaming phone calls. Just distance. People stopped inviting my parents to speak confidently about sacrifice and everything they'd done for their children. My aunt never said I was right. She didn't need to. She started sending me recipes and asking how classes were going. That was her version of an apology for not seeing it sooner. My mother tried to call twice after the agreement was signed. I let it ring out both times. My father sent one message. 3 words. You made this public. I didn't respond. Because I hadn't. They had. The second they used my future like it belonged to them. The second they called me a failure at my own engagement dinner while sitting over stolen money. That was the moment they made it public. Not me. A few months later, I moved into a smaller apartment closer to campus. Nothing special. 2nd floor. Old hardwood. Thin walls. A desk by the window. It was perfect. My fiancé came over the first night with takeout and 2 folding chairs because we hadn't bought proper furniture yet. We ate on paper plates. The room still smelled like cardboard boxes and fresh paint. And for the first time in a long time, I felt no need to explain myself to anyone. No need to defend what I knew. No need to prove I wasn't what they had called me. Because the truth had already done that. Quietly. Completely. That night, everything was quiet.